Welcome at the Masters of Science, Governance and Sustainability. It's great that you show some interest in this particular Masters program. And in this particular video, I'm going to explain you how we think about this particular program, why we have this program, and the way that translates into our teaching vision and teaching program. The reason why governance and sustainability is increasingly important is kind of supported by various recent newspaper items. So this is just a random selection of various newspaper items of the past couple of months. There's an indication of a Dutch nitrogen cycle, which is kind of known already from the 1970s, that there is a eutrophication issue, but it has not been solved. So apparently the governance thereof is quite complicated. Likewise, there is an incentive to go to a Green Deal within the EU to combat climate change, to combat global change in general, but also there, the implementation thereof is still open for debate. And of course, quite recently, with the COVID pandemic, the real question is, what should our future climate and future planet look like? And what are the governance structures to make sure that we actually provide a sustainable future? And as this quote by Bill Gates indicates, we currently have a pandemic, but probably the pandemic which may arise by climate change might actually be worse. So how are we going to deal with those important sustainability challenges that are approaching us and which are partly already here? Well, internationally, there's a wide variety of initiatives currently ongoing. Probably the most well-known thereof is the Sustainable Development Goals, which are depicted in this diagram. As the United Nations tries to achieve sustainability in the near future to come. There are also a range of other international initiatives. Some of those are listed on the left-hand side, showing that there is a major international appreciation of the fact that we need to think about sustainability and our ways to deal with it. So, if there's such interest in that, why don't we have a sustainable planet yet? And the main reason for this is that experts that have a different background also tend to have a different perspective. So people coming from a natural scientist background, thinking about sustainability, usually have quite a different perspective on the whole issue compared to people having more of a governance background. And in addition, that background is likely to be very different again from the perspective that the public may have, which leads to all kinds of public debates, as also exemplified on the right-hand side, where a major debate emerged whether or not to shoot deer to protect nature, or whether that should be considered as an offense to nature. So that shows that there are different perspectives with respect to sustainability. Without sort of having a awareness on those different perspectives, it's very hard to come up with an integral solution. So therefore, we really need to integrate the various perspectives, integrate concepts, integrate views in order to come up with a proper holistic solution to deal with the governance of sustainability. And this is also what has been indicated to us by various of our stakeholders of the program. We have stakeholders from ministries, municipalities, governments, and each of them indicate one by one that the experience by these stakeholders has shown that we talk about complex issues and therefore need the perspectives from different disciplines. And therefore there's quite a strong demand for graduate students that do have the understanding of environmental sustainability coming from a natural scientist point of view, as well as a solid understanding of the governance processes that are involved. And that's exactly what we try to aim at this Masters of Science, Governance and Sustainability. So we try to make you the future broker or the change agent to really be able to implement these changes and to implement governance of sustainability. Dealing with the various challenges, some of which I mentioned before, providing this integrated view and this integrated perspective on the entire issue. So the way we try to achieve this aim is by indeed having such an integrated approach. So we combine natural sciences on environmental sustainability with governance sciences and perspective, and which is about a 50-50 kind of balance. So each of them receives equal weight. And we integrate those two. So we do this by co-creating solutions, by co-teaching, as well as making sure that each of our courses are providing both perspectives simultaneously, rather than keeping them separate. Because we think that if we really keep those separate, it's much harder to provide this holistic view. The other way we try to achieve this is by thinking about transdisciplinary skills. I already mentioned that non-academics may have quite a different view on the sustainability issues compared to academics. So we need to integrate the various perspectives that are currently around, which implies that we need to come up with crossing the academic border and crossing the various disciplinary boundaries. We can achieve this by training you in the transdisciplinary skills, because with those skills you learn how to debate, how to know your own personal style and perspective, your own beliefs, and from that awareness of your own belief, you can also think about the beliefs and perspectives of others, understanding those, and from that understanding, communicate the complexity, as well as try to find solutions for some of the conflicts that may arise. Through such transdisciplinary skills, you develop a shared language, rather than a separate language coming from the natural sciences or from governance sciences. And we need such a shared language as a condition in order to come to the correct solutions. We make sure that the non-academic views are also fully integrated in the program. We do this by providing or having real cases provided by our stakeholders. So, as an example, there is an incentive to create a new national park in the Netherlands, which should integrate cultural as well as natural values, which demands a completely different structure of governance to make sure this national park truly protects nature and protects the cultural values at the same time. The stakeholders involved of this particular national park are part of our program, and they provide challenges and questions that the students are being asked to solve in combination with the stakeholders. In addition, some of our stakeholders provide guest lectures to provide their perspectives and their views and show how particular sustainability challenges are being governed in their own working experiences. Altogether, this translates into our program as depicted in this particular slide. We start off with transdisciplinary skills because we think that it's highly important for all of you to understand your own perspectives and to come up with those skills. In the course of time, we add a multitude of other skills to this. Those skills are provided by the various thematic courses, but more specifically, they are provided by our research skills courses. So we do have a qualitative research skills course, which provides you with the knowledge and skills to analyze interview data, to analyze literature, to find patterns, and to understand sort of the logic behind these. In addition, we have the quantitative research skills course, in which you learn how to analyze quantitative data through the use of statistics, and at the same time be able to make a distinction between nonsense and true understanding of the statistics, because significance alone is not going to tell you the story. And if you have to govern solutions, you must be able to critically review the literature, both based on qualitative skills as well as quantitative research skills. So those are our skills narrative within the program. In addition to that, we have a contents narrative. We have 4 thematic courses. Each of those are treating an important concept of governance theory and an important concept coming from environmental sustainability. In combination, those 4 courses give you the background and the understanding that you need for treating all the theoretical knowledge and understanding for this particular field. You will be asked to combine those in the sustainability challenge. And, after all, in your own research thesis. Let's zoom in a bit more into our thematic courses. So these are the various themes that we are treating in our thematic courses. We focus on environmental sustainability, which implies that we need to have an understanding of the circular economy, the various material flows, the demands for materials, as well as an understanding of where are the most important environmental impacts, starting from mining up to the moment of creating waste. The second theme is biodiversity and ecosystems. There's a major demand for protecting our nature, to protecting ecosystems, but at the same time there's a demand for ecosystem services provided by nature. So in this course, those concepts are being treated. The third course is about climate and energy. Climate has been one of the most long ongoing debates in science and policy with respect to our global change. So how are we going to mitigate climate change? How are we going to adapt to climate change? But most importantly, how are we going to make a transition towards a carbon neutral society? And the fourth theme is water and tox. With climate change, there's an increasing demand on our freshwater sources, both in terms of quantity as well as in terms of quality. And toxicity, whether it comes from pesticides or eutrophication or nanoparticles or plastics, is an important topic to deal with. And each of those natural sciences, environmental sustainability aspects is coupled to a concept and theory coming from governance. So we start off with the policy cycle. This treats the basic concepts and ideas that you do need with respect to how does this decision making work, what are the various steps taken, and how is governance being implemented. In the second course, we focus much more on the collaborative governance dynamics. So what are the stakeholders? What is exactly the network? To which extent is this network formally or informally organized? And how can we analyze these particular networks of stakeholders? In the third thematic course, we deal with the governance of social and political change. Or how do we actually implement a transition? We all need, as a society, we need major transitions, because otherwise we're not going to make the transition to a sustainable society. How do those transitions work, and what is needed to make such a transition work? And finally, in the fourth course, we apply decision-making models. So it's the models about decision-making, but also how do you frame a particular problem? How is that framing translated into decision-making, and how do you influence this decision-making process? As you can see in this scheme, each of those themes is coupled to one of the other themes, and therefore together this provides the understanding of the global concepts. And then in the sustainability challenge, you have to go off diagonal, which implies you need to use the theory, for instance, on policy cycles, and instead of applying it to materials, you need to apply it to climate or toxicity or biodiversity. And vice versa, you will be asked to connect different environmental sustainability challenges together, because that's the reality. In most cases, our transitions are not one-dimensional, but multidimensional, and that makes them so-called wicked problems. And we need to think about those wicked problems in order to come up with solutions. Finally, you end with your research thesis. And again, this is being co-supervised by experts from governance and experts from environmental sciences to provide you with the understanding and doing research on the connection between governance and environmental sustainability. And therefore, it prepares you to become this future broker, which you hope you will become after your graduation. Something more about the kind of students that we have in our program. Our students come from multiple backgrounds, and we like this because that implies that each of you come up with your own knowledge and your own skills and your own perspective. And we think those multiple perspectives are very important to understand the ideas with respect to the governance. But that also implies that we need to create this shared language that I already introduced before. And we do this in multiple ways. First of all, we make sure that we are teaching by interactive methods, because through interactive methods you can learn from one another. So we create a learning community of students in discussion groups, but also by peer-to-peer teaching. So explaining from your own perspective and your own background a particular piece of theory to the other students, which helps you to understand your own perspective, but it also helps you transfer your perspective to other students. And this learning community is also composed of our own teachers. So also as a teachers, we continuously learn from one another and continuously learn to appreciate each other's perspectives. Secondly, we do not train you to become an expert in one of the individual fields, because we want you to be at the interface of those fields. That also implies that next to you there will always be experts that know more than you do about a particular topic. And that's okay, because you need to accept that you cannot know everything. And you need to understand how you should deal with those, and how you can use your own skills to make the connections among the various experts, and therefore come up with solutions to the wicked problems. And third of all, we want to make sure that we can really discuss the contents of the governance sustainability. That also implies that some of the basic understanding of some of the respective fields may not be taught in our courses. And instead we ask you to do remedial self-study through online courses. Of course, we make very explicit what we consider as your prior knowledge, and we make very explicit the kind of online courses that we think would be very helpful for you to come up with speed. And those could be courses on statistics or environmental sciences or biology, but it could also be courses on the governance and politics, because again, you're coming from multiple backgrounds, and therefore you also have difference in terms of lack of understanding and knowledge. As mentioned already, we do put an emphasis on the skills, because we think that your skills will make you the future broker, more so possibly than the contents alone. So we think it's very important that you are being trained in debating, collaborating, but also in analysis of the problems and the calculations of the problems. Because it's the latter that make this a Masters of Science. And therefore, we also demand that you are thinking about the quantitative skills that you need to develop in order to have this role as a future broker. Because again, only if you can make a very critical review on the existing knowledge and understanding, you can come up with governance solutions that actually tackle the problem. And in addition to the transferable skills, we also have a set of non-transferable skills. So these are mostly related on how to assess sustainability, which you can do in the lab or in the field, and the latter is an example on the right-hand side of this slide, where you do see various experimental ditches that we use to understand toxicity impacts on ecosystems. And you will be exposed to these lab and field experiments to create an understanding of how they are being performed, what are their merits, but also what are their pitfalls. Because again, that understanding helps you to make the right decisions with respect to the governance thereof. And finally, we also want to make you sure that you can do the calculations. So this is an example of some of the calculations that you may be asked, in this case, in the context of calculating the inputs and outputs out of a system. So what is the balance of materials in a particular system? Does it lead to much waste, or does it lead to a depletion of sources? And these are kind of quantitative tools that you can use in order to calculate those. We have located our program at the campus The Hague as part of Leiden University. The reason why we have this is that The Hague is the seat of action in the Netherlands for national and international governance on sustainability. And therefore we are very closely linked, literally, to the ministries that are around the location, which makes it very easy to invite guest speakers coming from the ministries to share their insights and views on the topics that we are discussing in our program. And therefore we think it's a very suitable location to have this program. Something about our entry requirements. We ask you to have a bachelor's degree of an accredited university program, which is comparable to 3 years of the Dutch academic education. In addition to that, we ask you to demonstrate your knowledge on sustainability issues. We also ask you to demonstrate your experience in interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary education, because, as mentioned, that's an important aspect of our program, so experience in those is a very helpful thing to have. We also ask you to have at least 8 ECs on quantitative methods, which could be statistics course or a mathematics course, or a course in which those tools have been implemented and given an important role. Those are important for creating and making sure you are able to understand our analysis tools and calculation tools that we use to quantify sustainability issues. And finally, for students coming from the Dutch HBO, we ask a grade point of an average of 7.5 or higher. When you are applying, we ask you to write a motivation letter in which you show how you have acquired this knowledge and experience, as well as sort of the 8 ECs. So we ask in this motivation letter to clarify to us why you think you fulfill our requirements. Once you have graduated, we think you will be a future broker or a change agent, working on governing sustainability. And we already have quite a big shoot of employers that have expressed their interest in our program. Those are ministries, provinces and municipalities, but also consultancy agencies that are working with providing governmental advice or governance advice in general, in which they need people who can make the transition from their own expert knowledge as consultancy agencies to the governance dynamics. Likewise, semi-private organizations, like the organizations dealing with the organization of water, drinking water, or our railway system, also they are increasingly demanding experts and our future brokers that allow them to govern their sustainability, because also these organizations increasingly have a demand for people who are able to implement the various transitions on sustainability that also these types of organizations are being asked to implement. And finally, also NGOs working at the interface of governance and sustainability have expressed their interest. If you are interested in our program, please register via StudyLink. And as mentioned before, when registering, we ask you to upload your motivation letter together with diplomas and other issues that are being asked on that site. There are 2 deadlines. The first deadline is the 1st of April, in case you do need a visa and residence permit, which mostly applies to non-EU residents. And the second deadline is the 15th of June, which is if you don't need a visa and residence permit in order to enroll in our program. If you would like to have more information, please visit our website or pose your questions either in the chat on our website or by email to the email address indicated below. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and we hope to be able to welcome you to our governance program, Governance of Sustainability.